Are you just starting out as an Etsy seller and wondering how much you can realistically make in your first year on Etsy? Maybe you've heard the wild success stories of other sellers who have made crazy amounts in their first year and are curious if that could actually happen for you. While every person and every business is different and there's definitely no one-size-fits-all shoe here, I do believe there's a few measurements that you can look at to predict or at least have a better idea of the amount you could possibly make your first year on Etsy. So that's what we're going over today. I have 4 things that you can take into consideration when trying to get a better idea on this, and I'm dishing out 3 pro tips at the end. These are 3 things that you can do to earn more and earn it quicker on Etsy, so you definitely want to stick around and watch to the end for that. But before we get into everything, I want to introduce myself. If this is our first time meeting, I'm Kate. I'm a wife, mom, Etsy seller, and business coach, and I'm here to help you start and scale your online business so that you can make a full-time income doing what you love. I also want to let you know about my free 60-minute Etsy training class that's available to you. It's my personal system built on the 5-pillar Etsy success formula that I've used and have coached thousands of others to gain Etsy success using. In the masterclass, I take a deep dive into these 5 pillars, these 5 strategies that have worked for me in building my shop to the multiple 6-figure business that I have today. If you're just starting out on Etsy, or maybe you've already started but just haven't seen the traction that you'd like and the momentum that you'd like, I think this training class is going to definitely help you to level up, improve your shop, and really be able to implement smart, strategic steps to start making consistent sales on Etsy. So if you'd like to watch that training class, you can go to etsymasterclass.com or just click the link in the description box below. Okay, let's go ahead and talk about these 4 things that you can take into consideration when trying to figure out how much you might be able to make on Etsy in your first year. The first thing you need to look at is how much time you have available to work on building your shop. I know this seems like a no-brainer, but it really is true. The amount of time that you work on strategically building your shop, researching your listings, researching your product choices, creating highly optimized listings that can be found in the search, promoting and marketing your shop and driving traffic, all of that takes time. So the amount of time that you have to put into this will have a direct effect on how much you can make in that first year. Now, you can definitely have success on Etsy whether you just have, let's say, an hour a week to work on this, or whether you're doing this as a full-time thing and working 40 plus hours a week on this. It can be something that you sort of fit into the available time that you have in the nooks and crannies of your everyday life, or it can be something that you're pouring all of your time and effort into in a really dedicated, intense way to build your shop quickly. You can have success either way, but obviously the person that has more dedicated time to pour into this, into both learning the strategies and researching on that side of it, and then implementing by taking action and actually building out their shop, is likely going to have a better chance of earning more in the first year. I know most of us have a lot of other things going on, so it's probably rare that someone's actually able to put all of their time and energy and focus into building out their Etsy shop in the beginning, but I would say to be as dedicated as you can and really to be proactive about carving out some time, even if it means you have to skip out on a few other things here and there or work while the kids nap. Whatever you have to do to create a little bit more space and time to work on your business will really pay off in the end. The second thing to take into consideration here is the amount of resources that you have at your disposal. Now, I'm thinking of resources in 3 sort of subcategories here. We're talking about money, which would be your startup budget, tools, and audience. So this really hugely depends on the type of product or the niche that you choose to sell in, because for certain types of products, you may need more of a hefty startup budget as opposed to, let's say, digital products that you really don't need much of a startup budget at all. Do you have overhead costs? Do you have certain softwares that you need to subscribe to? Do you need to buy a certain amount of materials to have your first set of inventory to work with? If you don't have much of a startup budget, then you might want to consider a niche that doesn't require as much money up front to begin. This ties into our second subcategory here, which are tools. What kind of tools and equipment do you need to start creating your products? If you're creating something like wood signs, you might need a ton of different things like sanders and hammers and nails and screws, stains and paints. You're going to have a startup budget to purchase these things in the beginning. Maybe you need more intense equipment like a laser cutting machine or a paper cutting machine. Or maybe your tools are not necessarily physical, but like I mentioned before, maybe it's a software that you need to pay a monthly subscription to that you're using to work on your digital products with. This is definitely niche specific, so it varies widely from category to category, but the amount of startup budget and the amount of equipment or tools that you already have at your disposal is going to give you a head start. And then as far as using an audience as a resource, do you already have some sort of audience built up, whether it be on social media, whether you have an email list, maybe you have a large in-person community that you know would be super excited about what you're doing? If you don't have an audience built up yet, then no worries at all. Don't let that discourage you, because you can start today to begin to build that audience, but it definitely gives you a leg up as well if you already have something going in terms of people to promote your shop to. The more of an audience you already have, or the more you can really be dedicated to start building an audience, the faster you're likely to start making sales and the more you're likely to make in your first year. Now, talking about our startup budget and needing to buy some startup materials, again, I don't want you to get discouraged if you don't have much to put towards this in the beginning. The question really is, if you don't, are you willing to work to build that up a little bit? This might mean continuing to work your full-time job for a while longer to pay your bills and to set some aside in savings to build up a startup budget. This could mean sacrificing your daily run to Starbucks and use that money instead to save towards your startup cost. So what I want you to take away from this resources subject is not necessarily how much you have to begin with, though if you already have some, that's wonderful to start with, but how willing are you to sacrifice a little bit, to work a little bit harder, to build that up and save some to invest in your business. All right, consideration number 3 here that's going to help you determine how much you could possibly make in your first year on Etsy is what kind of attitude or mindset you have going into it. So I have 4 sort of sub questions within this category. Question number 1 is, do you view this as a hobby or a business? Either one is fine, but I will say if you view it as a hobby, it's going to be a lot harder to get to the point where you're making consistent sales because the work and the strategy that goes into shops that make consistent sales and make those high numbers you've seen people talk about requires a business mindset. This includes promotion, marketing, strategy. You're not as likely to think in those terms if you just come into this thinking, this is just a side thing that I enjoy. I just want to do this as a hobby. Again, nothing wrong with that mindset, but if you want to make those high numbers of profit, you're going to have to switch your mindset a little bit to shift to more of a business mindset. Question number 2 is, do you actually believe that you can have success on Etsy? This sounds pretty simple, but it affects everything. Deep down in your heart and the way that you think about your shop, do you actually believe it's possible? If you can be really honest with yourself and realize that maybe you don't, if you're in that place, and that's totally okay, but we've got to work on shifting that mindset to an I can mindset. It's possible. The shops that have major success on Etsy are the ones who attack it with that kind of mindset that they believe it's possible and they have what it takes to make it happen. And this leads into the next question, which is, do you take action on that belief? If you do actually believe that it's possible, then do you actually take action? It can be really easy to get stuck in either the analysis paralysis area where you're just analyzing, and you never take action. You get scared to actually do anything about it. Or you get stuck in the learning phase where you're just consuming so much content about how to do it that you never actually do the thing. It is important to learn and to always be up-leveling your knowledge about strategy, tactics to implement for success, but all of that means nothing if you don't actually ever take action on it. Imperfect action is absolutely the way to go. You're never going to feel completely ready to do it, so at some point you just need to take a step and start implementing. At the end of the day, people who believe they can make it happen invest differently. I'm talking investing of money, time, effort. They just invest more fully, which a lot of times leads to success. Now we're about to hop into the 4th thing to take into consideration here, but if you're finding value in this video, I'd love for you to subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss one of our new weekly videos. All right, the next thing we're thinking about here is the niche that you choose. I have a couple questions here as well. So question number 1 is, how saturated is your niche? Saturated means the number of sellers that are selling similar types of products to you and targeting a similar type of customer to you. The more sellers and the more similar types of products in that category that are being sold, the more competition you have and the more saturated that niche is. Now, this might be intimidating to think about if you're in a really saturated niche, but I do want to encourage you that market saturation is actually a good thing. It actually proves that there's demand for the type of product that you're thinking of. So we want to see that there's competition and we want to see that there's other sellers offering similar things to us because that means that there are customers actually on Etsy searching for those things. Now, the more saturated the niche that you're selling in, the longer it might take or the more effort it might take to actually break through and be discovered because you do have more competition, but it's absolutely possible no matter how saturated the niche is, if you have the right product in the right styles at the right price point with optimized listings and you're putting smart strategy into place, it is absolutely possible to break through. It just might mean that you have to be a little bit smarter about how you go about things and you might have to market and promote a little bit more to drive traffic to your shop. The second question here is, are you selling more high profit margin items or low profit margin items? You can make good money with both, but you do need to consider that if you're selling smaller, lower ticket items that have a smaller profit margin, it's going to take a larger quantity or volume of sales to make the same profit that you would with fewer higher ticket items. So if you are planning on selling smaller, low ticket, low profit margin items, what strategy do you have in place to actually market and promote your shop and drive traffic to your shop to increase that volume of traffic? You've got to be really smart about this and really intentional if those are the types of items you're thinking of selling. And question number 3 is, how optimized is your shop for return customers? This is definitely very niche specific, as certain product categories or niches lend themselves better to return customers than others. For instance, if you have a shop where you're selling items in a gifting category or even a seasonal category, you're likely to have the same customers return season after season or holiday after holiday because they need to purchase more gifts or they want to purchase different seasonal decor items. So the niche that you've chosen actually is a great one for getting return customers. If you're selling in a niche where people don't need those types of items as often or they don't have to replace them as often, let's say really high quality furniture, then you're probably not going to be getting as many return customers. Someone might just buy a handmade table from you if that's what you're selling, but they probably don't need to buy a handmade table once every like 3 or 4 months, right? They're not going to have the need to come back as often. It's not to say that these types of niches are bad. You just have to consider that and think about pricing your items higher in a similar niche that is not going to have as many return customers. This way you're able to make a higher profit on fewer sales. Okay, so those are the 4 things to take into consideration, but I have 3 major pro tips that are going to help you earn more and earn it quickly if you implement these in the right way. So pro tip number 1 that I highly recommend you do is to reinvest a portion of your profits back into your business as often as you can. So when you do start making sales and you do start seeing those profits, it can be really tempting to want to just keep all of that for yourself and to start paying bills with it, to start using it in your life for whatever you need. But I want to challenge you to change your thinking on that a little bit. Not that you can't keep some of the profit, you definitely can and should, but it's really wise to save a portion of your profit to reinvest back into your business to up-level it when you need things like new and better equipment, new software subscriptions. You might want to try paid ads for marketing. There are a lot of different things that you can pay for that you need a little bit of a budget for to improve your shop and improve your marketing, and saving a portion of your profits and reinvesting it is a really smart way to do that. Pro tip number 2 is to gain inspiration from successful shops in your niche. I've heard the quote before, success leaves clues, and this is so true. When we're looking for clues on what works, what will actually sell and make our shop successful, it's a really smart thing to do to look at the people who are having success and see what they're doing. Analyze what they have in place to make it work for them. Now, this doesn't mean that you're being a copycat or that you're trying to copy someone's designs or listings. You're looking at successful shops that sell similar things to what you want to sell to gain inspiration from what they're doing, but you're still thinking, how can I put my own twist on this, my own flair? How can I make it better? How can I incorporate elements that maybe they haven't thought of yet? In doing this, you're building on really smart strategy that you know works and making it even better by incorporating more elements of your own and making it unique. And pro tip number 3 is don't be afraid to try. When I say try, I'm talking about just trying different things. It could be different product types. It could be different styles within your product type. It could be trying different methods of promotion and marketing. Just don't be afraid to try things and to experiment, especially as you're just getting started. You may have to go through a few different ideas before you find what really takes and what really works for your shop. One key quality that I see in really successful Etsy shop owners over and over again is the ability to stay flexible and to pivot when necessary. So used to doing it one way that you can't make a change when the market calls for a change. Maybe you're creating headbands in a style that eventually kind of goes out and you have to think of what new style is coming in that you could use for a new pattern or material. Whatever the pivot or the change is, don't be afraid of it. Dive in and try it. And remember, you can always try other new things as well. You're never stuck in one way or one product type. So friends, I hope these tips were helpful for you in determining how much you might realistically be able to make in your first year on Etsy, as well as some really strategic things that you can start to implement today to level up your shop. Don't forget to go to etsymasterclass.com or click that link in the description box below to watch my 60-minute 5-pillar Etsy success formula masterclass. It's going to get you started off on the right foot and give you a deep dive into strategy that you can start implementing in your shop today. And if you haven't gotten your first 100 sales on Etsy yet, I have a video that's all about how to do that teed up here for you. Just click or tap on the square on the screen right now, and it'll take you over to watch that video. Talk soon, friends.